I'm excited about this week's project to share with you. This may not be the prettiest bowl I've ever turned, but it's definitely in my top 3. Beautiful piece of wood that ended up becoming a very beautiful bowl. And leave a comment to let me know if you agree. If you follow my channel, you'll remember this piece of wood from a couple weeks ago. It's the other half of the Cherry Burl. Now, when I cut it, in order to make a large bowl out of the first half, this half turns out to be a bit thinner. It's also shaped a little bit differently, but I'm excited about this. I think it's going to turn out nice. What we're going to do is this flat spot down here will be the top of the bowl. This will be the bottom, so I'm going to have to get rid of enough of that to make a tenon. But I'm going to leave this square edge here, and I'm going to leave this natural edge here. And it will be a rim bowl because it is oval shaped. So this will be the round portion, and these will just be wings on the bowl. Stay tuned and see how it turns out. Okay, we've got this mounted up on a faceplate, and we're going to work the bottom first as usual. The bark is not going to stay on, it's not in good shape. There's some pretty big cracks here. I think I'll be able to turn those out. But I did notice that when I took the bark off, there's a fair bit of critters underneath here. We'll just take them for a little spin. Once I cut them away, we'll be into solid wood and that won't be a problem, but there is a fair bit of bugs underneath the bark. Speed is fairly good. Even there without the tailstock engaged, I could get 350 RPM. And as we round this up, I'll be able to take that up pretty quickly. The first step in the process is to remove the bark, make sure that I'm into solid wood, and then form a tenon. The tenon will be used to flip the bowl around and hold it while I'm turning the inside. So now I think you can start to see I've actually got what will probably be the start of my tenon here now. I've taken the bottom up and you can see there'll be a hole here, 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 and a fairly big one here and here. Some of that may come away yet. Still is a bad crack here, and it's, I say a crack, it's actually bark inclusion. So we'll see about that, whether that's stable enough. I think the fact that my tenon will be under compression, that should be okay. But you can also see here now where I'm getting the rim starting to develop. So this is the circle here. This piece will remain and this piece will remain, but they'll just be wings on the side of the bowl. So I'm pleased with the way that's turning out, and I think it's going to be beautiful, beautiful looking wood, just like its sister. So I started to just flatten the top off, working from this side, because this here, again, as I mentioned, is going to stay and stick out as handles on the bowl. And same with this piece, 180 degrees opposite. Problem I have right here is I've got some pretty good cracks, and I've also got a piece missing here. I want to take it down at least to there to get rid of that, but I'm going to have to glue these cracks up so that they are stable. So I'll just put some CA glue down in here and in this pith area to strengthen it up, and then that way I can turn it down. This one on this side, I'm going to turn this side up, so I'll probably get rid of most of this crack and these smaller ones here as well. So that's the plan at this point. Take this down to here and take the bottom up to at least here, so most of this crack will be gone. So I put some CA glue in here and just clamp that together. That will help keep that together. Once that's set up, I didn't use accelerator because I want the glue to actually seep in a bit. But once that's done, only take a few minutes, and then I'll be able to turn this away, flatten this out, get it to its thickness, and then finish working on the bowl. I don't want to cut the underside up and then find out when I flatten the top out that I'm too thin. So that's what I'm going to start on the top. So the last time you saw this, I was working on the pith, and the pith is right here. Pith being the center of the tree. And it's also a little bunky there, which is a bit of a fancy word for rot. So I put some glue on it, stiffened it up, and I've gotten rid of the piece that was chipped out. So I'm relatively happy with this being my top surface. I'm going to maintain some of this as my top surface. So I'm going to flip it around. Not flip it around, I'll just move my tool rest around and work on the bottom till I get this the thickness that I want, and then we'll stop there and then work the bowl itself. Now you can tell that I have the speed up good on this because it is starting to get more balanced. And I'm starting to form the rim on the outside. It's not a continuous turn, but it's turning fairly well. People often ask me why I fill it with coffee. Two reasons. One, that gap is way too big to leave. Number two, not very strong, it could break. It goes from here to here. I don't want this side of the bowl to break off. If I just filled it full of CA glue, it would be transparent and clear and it would show up. Coffee works as a nice filler because you need to have some filler in it. And you could use sawdust, that's true. But on a piece like this with a burl, and you see these bark inclusions all the way through it, this actually makes, coffee makes for a really good color match. So it works out well. So in this case, I like to put my coffee in dry, fill the gap as much as possible, clean off any excess on the outside afterwards, usually just blow it off a little bit. Apologize for my fat head being in the way. And then once I get the crack filled sufficiently with coffee, then I put the CA glue on top of that, and it'll soak in to the coffee grinds and makes, again, a good strong filler. The reason I do this again at the base is because here at this section, I don't want it to crack open. I'm holding it with that tenon. I don't want this to be a weak spot. Now I just take a stick and I push the CA glue in, make sure it's well mixed, make sure the coffee is all wetted. Now you can see that I've got the outside finished and I will start sanding it. I'm not going to show the whole sanding process. That's a bit boring. But you can see here as I sand out on the rim, I'm still sanding when I get to the far end there, again because I have a non-continuous rim. Once I'm done sanding, I'll put some sanding sealer on it. I like to put sanding sealer on it. It gives me an idea of the color. As you can see, it's starting to develop here. It also makes subsequent sanding a little bit easier, and it also reveals any scratches that are still left in the surface. Sometimes they're hard to see on the normal surface, but once you put sanding sealer on it, it tends to highlight those and makes them easy to fix up later. Now that the sealer has been applied to the outside, and additional sanding done, I flip it around and start working on the inside of the bowl. You can see here that I'm starting to turn the inside, but I've left my faceplate on, and I just bring my tailstock up and engage it with the faceplate. The reason I do this is that way I know that nothing has moved. If I took the faceplate off and remounted it, there is a chance that I could get it a little bit off center from where it was when I turned the outside, which could make for a non-uniform thickness of the bowl itself. So I like to get it started with the faceplate in place. Here what I'm doing is just working the outside till I establish the diameter of the bowl that I want to establish. Now I've removed the faceplate. That just allows me to get into the center of the bowl, gives me a little bit more room to work. But by this time, I have the outer rim established, and I'm not as concerned about the bowl moving at this point. Probably one of my favorite times in the process of making the bowl, and that's applying the finish. For this bowl, I'm going to use a tung oil and just wipe it in with a rag. Tung oil works well with cherry. It brings out the natural colors in the wood quite well, and you can see here just the color of the wood changing in front of your very eyes. It also leaves a nice satiny smooth finish, although when I'm done with the tung oil, after it's dried, I did buff this one with some wax as well, just to give it a little bit more soft, silky feel. It's a soft wax, so it doesn't give you a hard surface, but again remains that softer feel. The natural color of cherry is hard to beat, and it will only darken up over time. But this is a burl, and you can see here it does have bark inclusions. The other thing that you see there, the darker dots, are what's known as burl eyes, much like you see in bird's eye maple, but these tend to only appear in burls. So here's the finished product. I'm very pleased with the way it turned out. Again, you can see the character of the wood in this burl. Very beautiful. Pleased with the overall shape as well, a natural edge on one and then the natural cut on the other side. With some bark left on it in places, some bark inclusions throughout. This may not be the prettiest bowl I've ever done, but it's definitely in the top 3. Really pleased with the way this turned out. This is the sister bowl to the one I turned a couple weeks ago. If you're interested in watching that video, it's in my library as well. Thank you for watching.